Nintendo is no stranger to controversies, but most that seem to be frequently brought up are events from their past that they're trying to cover up today. What about the modern controversies, the ones affecting Switch players right now? Well, those are the ones that we're going to focus on in this video. Yeah, most coverage about the Switch tends to be positive, and that's admittedly well deserved. This console has been very financially successful, especially coming off of the sales disaster that was the Wii U, and there are many fantastic games present on the Switch. But despite all of that, this console is not above criticism, and there have been many aspects about the Switch, its games, and Nintendo's modern tactics in general that have been called out by fans. Now, not all of these controversies may be a big deal to you or me specifically, but they have been to many people, hence them being on this list. And with all that being said, here are the 10 biggest controversies with the Nintendo Switch. Before we get started with the list, I want to talk about the sponsor of today's video, Surfshark VPN. For those of you who don't know, a virtual private network, or VPN for short, is a service that allows you to connect to the internet via an encrypted tunnel to ensure your online privacy and protect your sensitive data. You ever recommend something to a friend and then get those targeted ads related to that? Well, with a VPN, that's not a worry anymore. Searching on public Wi-Fi and are concerned that someone could be stealing your information? Well, a VPN could prevent that as well. One of my favorite parts about Surfshark VPN is the ability to view blocked content from your country on Netflix and similar platforms. You can't view the Simpsons movie on Netflix in most countries, but by using a VPN, you can switch your country to Sweden and view it that way. And this is the case with several other great movies and shows on Netflix as well, because of just how much region locking there is. And right now, Surfshark actually has a really good deal going on. By using the link in the description and the code Siiroth, you can get an 83% discount, which I'd really recommend taking advantage of. But you actually don't have to worry about spending anything on Surfshark at first, because you get a 3-month free trial when using the link below. 3 months free, and when you do pay, you're getting 83% off. But on top of that, for whatever reason, if you're not satisfied, Surfshark is offering a 30-day money-back guarantee, so just like how their service protects your data from threats, your purchase is protected too. I really think you'll enjoy the service. Coming in at the number 10 spot on this list, we have the limited time windows for various releases. This one just had to edge its way onto the list with all of the modern controversies going on with recent games. As I'm sure most of you are aware of, one of the biggest releases of 2020 was Super Mario 3D All-Stars, an anniversary collection where you get Mario 64, Sunshine, and Galaxy all in one combo. And yeah, there's obviously many positives with it. I mean, those are 3 of the most legendary Mario games of all time, and putting them in a collection is obviously something that many people want, but of course there's many problems with it, as we've gone over in previous videos. But the big one that stuck out for me is the limited time availability for this collection. Nintendo is making this a limited time only purchase to influence people to buy this game as soon as possible so that they could resell these games later on down the line, which to many is a pretty scummy move. But this isn't only the case with the Mario 35 collection, because if this was the only instance of this occurring, it may not have made the list. But because this is the case with other games as well, we just had to put it on here. Super Mario 35 is a game akin to Tetris 99, where you compete against 34 others to see who can last the longest in 2D Mario. I've gotten to try it out and it's pretty fun. Yeah, there are some problems with it. It's not perfect. I enjoy Tetris 99 much more, but it is still enjoyable, but we can only play it until March 31st of next year. But is that it for the limited time releases? No. Very recently, Nintendo announced that the original Fire Emblem was going to be coming to the Nintendo Switch, a game that had not been released outside of Japan before. This is a big deal because I'm sure many people wanted to get more familiar with characters like Marth, who I'm sure that many only knew of purely because of Smash Brothers. And who could blame them for that, because the game wasn't here. Now it is, but oh yeah, it's only until March 31st. Now I'm sure that the reason that they're picking March 31st as the deadline is because that's when the Japanese fiscal year ends, so they'd like to boost their profits by then. Overall, this is very controversial. It may not be a big deal to you if you plan on buying these games right away anyways, but if you're someone who likes to wait until later and think about it for a little while, this could definitely be something that pisses you off. Coming in at the number 9 spot, we have censorship. Now this is not Switch specific, this has been the case for a long time, but censorship on the Nintendo Switch specifically has still been very controversial, and I've gotta mention it here. I made an entire video about characters who were censored in Nintendo's history, and many of these instances came on the Nintendo Switch. In the international versions of Smash Ultimate, the clothing on characters like Camilla and Mithra has them covered up a lot more than in the Japanese version, which I'm sure some people aren't happy about. There are also many games that are exclusive to Japan that we're not getting over here, maybe because of risque content that Nintendo doesn't think is suitable for our audience, or maybe just because of pure stubbornness that Nintendo doesn't want to localize them. Very recently, there was also the whole Steve Meat situation for Smash, where they actually made an entire update just to get rid of the victory celebration for Steve. I thought it was really funny and maybe was unintentional, but Nintendo just decided to take it out and ruin any fun that people were having with it. Some people tend to support censorship if it's censorship of something that they didn't have a positive opinion of, and some people just dislike censorship in general, as they feel that it should be more open-ended and we should be able to decide for ourselves whether or not that material is suitable for us to consume, or if we like to accept it. During the Switch era, Nintendo still tends to be making these decisions for us, which is a very controversial thing. Coming in at the number 8 spot on this list, we have Super Mario Party. I decided to designate an entire spot to just this one game because of how much controversy that's involved within it. Super Mario Party, in theory, sounds like the game that everybody wanted. We all wanted that return to form to the original Mario Party style, right? We didn't like the car, we didn't like it where everybody moved at once, and I was in that camp. I really wanted Mario Party to go back to the way it was. But in exchange for doing that, they took a lot away as well, and still held back on some new features that fans wanted to see. For some reason, with Super Mario Party, Nintendo decided not to allow players to participate in online with friends. I could definitely see why Nintendo wouldn't want people playing online Mario Party with random people. There could definitely be some problems that arise when you get many in the young audience going online with random strangers. That perspective I get, and I'm not even really sure how much fun Mario Party would be with random people anyway. I mean, one of my favorite parts of Mario Party is playing locally with people, just to see the reactions and stuff, but I'm sure it would still be nice if it was over a call as well. Nintendo doesn't offer the ability for people to do that, which is something that many people disliked. We're going to get more into the online in general a little bit later, but I believe that we should be able to play Mario Party online if we're paying for online, and that's all I want to say for it right now. The buddy mechanic for Mario Party was a little bit controversial as well, allowing players to get massive rolls by accumulating the buddies, and because the boards are incredibly small, you can just travel along the entire board insanely quickly. Oh, and did I mention there's only 4 of them? Yeah. There's half the amount of boards in Super Mario Party as there was in Mario Party 1. Yes, I'm serious, that's an actual fact. So yes, Super Mario Party took some steps in the right direction, but it also took potentially more steps back. And this polarizing attitude that fans have toward this game has generated a lot of controversy, and it's definitely deserved its place on this list. Coming in at the number 7 spot, we have deliberate stock shortages. This one is more of a theory as opposed to a concrete fact, but it's been something that's been called out by many fans and has generated a lot of controversy. One of the few aspects about the Wii U era that was very successful for Nintendo was Amiibo. Nintendo took that Toys to Life genre that was very prominent with games like Skylanders and Disney Infinity and made their own version of it with some of the most iconic characters. And yeah, you could probably go everywhere and pick up a Mario amiibo or a Pikachu amiibo or something like that, but some of the specific characters, let's just say, weren't on the shelves for very long. And this wasn't because of their lack of notoriety either, it was just Nintendo deciding that they weren't going to have enough stock. That was during the Wii U era, but it's extended into the Switch era as well, and it's now gotten into games and not just Amiibo. The value of a game like Ring Fit Adventure right now is much higher than it normally would be because the game is almost always out of stock, and many people find it very difficult to get their hands on it if they want to. Now on the surface, it may seem like a bad thing for Nintendo to have these stock shortages. After all, you're leading people to go and buy it from scalpers instead of giving the money directly to Nintendo. And yes, that is part of the philosophy, but there's also the part of the philosophy where Nintendo is artificially increasing the demand for products that otherwise wouldn't have that demand. Yeah, I'm sure many people would have been interested in buying Ring Fit Adventure had it just come out and had a ton of copies out on the shelf, but would you really have wanted to go and buy it early? Again, like the limited time window situation, it's providing you with that incentive to buy something before you normally would. This is something that's very controversial. It's been going on a long time, and it's going on even more now in the Switch era. That's why it's deserved its spot on this list. Coming in at the number 6 spot, we have Wii U Ports. There weren't too many of us that went out and bought a Wii U when Nintendo's times were at their darkest. That was the console that they were supporting, admittedly only for a few years because of the diminishing sales, but there were still many great games on the Wii U. We had Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, Super Mario 3D World, Pikmin 3, The Wonderful 101, many games, great games, were on this console. But wait, all those games that I just named there are actually also Switch games. In fact, the best-selling game on the Nintendo Switch right now is an enhanced port of a Wii U game, Mario Kart 8. Nintendo for the Switch era basically decided, let's take all the best games from the Wii U, not Xenoblade X though, and port them over to the Nintendo Switch and just resell them for full price. And you know what? It's worked out. Many games that have been ported to the Switch are outselling their counterparts on the Wii U because there are many people that own a Switch that never had a chance to buy them on the Wii U. This has generated a lot of controversy because many fans who owned a Wii U and played these games on the Wii U that aren't interested in buying them again are complaining because they feel that this is taking development resources that otherwise would be put towards new games which they're more interested in playing. But those on the other side argue that, hey, I never got a chance to play this game yet on the Wii U, and they're adding a little bit of new content as well to give that extra incentive for the full price purchase. How could you complain about it just now being available for someone to buy on the Switch? I definitely understand both sides and perspectives on this debate. It's very polarizing and it's been an issue that's persisted ever since the inception of the Nintendo Switch. But the good thing is, for people complaining about this, there just aren't many Wii U games left to port, so we're probably going to be nearing the end of this very soon. Moving into the top 5, we're at the number 5 spot, we have limited storage. When it comes to transitioning into the modern era of consoles, there's always two major segments with Nintendo. The one that they excel in and they're a big innovator in, and there's the one that they're always lagging behind in. Nintendo normally always excels in innovation and pushing the industry forward in terms of unique components. The two-screen experience of the DS, the motion controls of the Wii, the hybrid nature of the Switch, things like that. But they're definitely behind when it comes to storage space, especially compared to the other consoles that are out on the market right now. The Nintendo Switch only came out with 32 gigabytes of storage. 32! Other consoles that were out on the market had 500 or even a terabyte worth of storage. Now, some of you may say, why would you complain about that? Nintendo makes their games much smaller, so that if you wanted to buy something like Breath of the Wild, it's only 13, 14. It's not too much, I mean that admittedly is almost still half the storage, but yes, they did decrease the sizes. So relative to Nintendo first-party titles, this 32 gigabytes may seem like an appropriate number. But what about the third-party games on the Switch? The ones that, you know, aren't putting as much effort in to compress their games specifically for this console? Yeah, those ones are normally exceeding the 32 gigabytes that's available on the Switch. But it's okay, you could just go buy an SD card, but go make sure you buy a Nintendo specific SD card for the Switch, because when playing Super Smash Bros. Ultimate in classic mode with SD cards that aren't Nintendo official, there's been some reports of glitches and corruption in files, and some people saying that their save data completely got deleted. And Nintendo is not going to acknowledge the problem because, hey, they're not responsible, it's not their SD card that you're using. You're not using their official one. Why go buy a cheaper SD card that's more convenient for yourself when Nintendo has a more expensive version out there that you're required to use if you want to make sure that your games run perfectly? This is something that's pissed a lot of people off, and rightfully so. It's generated a lot of controversy. I think it's a problem. I wish Nintendo just debuted the console with higher storage space, but hopefully in the future for a Switch Pro or something like that, they'll have learned their lesson on this. And coming in at the number 4 spot is Bioleth. Need I say more? Alright, fine, I'll go into it a little bit more. I really didn't want to have to put this that high, but admittedly, I think this is the 4th biggest controversy with the Nintendo Switch. Some may view that as a good thing, some may view that as a bad thing. But in general, I think we could all agree that Bioleth's inclusion in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate was very controversial. Now, if you completely ignored Bioleth's series, right, and just said Bioleth is a character that's from a modern Nintendo game on the Switch that sold a couple million units, you could probably just say on the surface, yeah, this character is a pretty recognizable first-party one that I'm sure many people would enjoy seeing in Smash. But then, when you reveal the series that he comes from, that being Fire Emblem, that's where the main controversy begins to start. It's the 8th Fire Emblem character included in the roster, which many people saw as the straw that broke the camel's back. That is one too many, and they were not accepting it. As someone who played Fire Emblem Three Houses and knows Bioleth and the references in the moveset to the other characters, yeah, I was definitely not upset about Bioleth whatsoever. I kind of understood where people were coming from if they weren't a big fan of the Fire Emblem characters in the roster, and I still personally view that there's too many based on how much I feel the series should have, but I wasn't really upset at Bioleth himself. In the broader context of it all though, I definitely understand why many were upset about the inclusion of Bioleth, and it's definitely generated a lot of controversy. Coming in at the number 3 spot, we have the Pokemon content on the Switch. I'm technically going to be lumping 5 games together here: Pokemon Sword, Shield, Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee, and Unite, which hasn't yet released. Let's start with the obvious ones, Pokemon Sword and Shield. Everyone knows it's extremely controversial. The base games had a massive national dex cut, and yeah, we've seen many Pokemon come back since then, but on the base releases of Sword and Shield, many fans were upset that they couldn't use their favorite Pokemon from the past, and they just generally didn't exist in these games. The games were also very handholdy, linear, set you in a specific direction. The graphics were definitely not up to par what many expected compared to other titles on the Nintendo Switch. The little post-game content that there was very repetitive, with many Dynamax battles just being the main mechanic of it, and Dynamax itself is a controversial mechanic because for competitive singles, it's incredibly broken. All in all, I'm sure many of you know the controversies with Sword and Shield already. There's a lot of people who love Sword and Shield, and it's going to be the first Pokemon games that they experience, and it's going to be the one that they look back on with nostalgia 10 years later, the same way many fans look back on Diamond and Pearl with nostalgia right now, and want those remakes. But moving on to Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, these games were controversial for different reasons. For those of you who remember, 3 years ago at E3, it was revealed that Pokemon's new generation on the Nintendo Switch would be debuting in 2018, but that game was eventually delayed, which turned out to be Sword and Shield. The replacement that released in 2018 was Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, another Kanto remake. Now, part of me is just terrified as to what Sword and Shield would have been had it actually gone ahead and released in 2018, but the other part of me was saying at the time, okay, this makes sense, let's get this Gen 8 Pokemon title to be the best that it can be, and we'll have Let's Go fill the void in the meantime. Let's Go, though, was a bare bones Kanto remake, sold for full price, with the catching mechanics being based on Pokemon Go. This was all controversial at the time, and Let's Go definitely did not have a unanimously positive reception when it released. And the final Pokemon title that was pretty controversial is Pokemon Unite. This one hasn't released yet, so a lot of the controversy hasn't completely manifested, but the reveal trailer for Pokemon Unite is massively disliked, and this is because of the company that's developing the game, which has been involved in Chinese spyware and things of that nature in the past. Many fans have been boycotting this game purely because of the development situation alone, and many feel that it's deserved this criticism. It's generated a lot of controversy. Coming in at the number 2 spot on this list, we have Joycon Drift. Joycon Drift primarily occurs in the left Joy-Con because it's the one that's used more often. It mainly comes from dust and general wear and tear on the controller, and will cause your controller to basically drift. If I'm crafting a level in Super Mario Maker and I just put my Switch down, my controller may just be moving up on its own for seemingly no reason. Now, there are many that haven't experienced Joy-Con Drift, and because of that, they completely deny that it exists, even though there's proof out there, and I'm definitely an example of someone who's been affected by this. This is not only controversial for the inconvenience that has caused many players, but it's also brought up broader questions on Nintendo's attention to detail on hardware quality. Like, have they just stopped caring? Have they stopped wanting to make hardware as good as possible and as functionally strong, just for the sake of making it a small little convenient controller that you can slip on the side of your console? These little things are pretty expensive too, and when they're priced like that and they stop working after a while because of general use, not like you're throwing it on the ground or something, just using your console like a normal person would, and the controller becomes practically unusable. I know they have a Joy-Con repair service out there, but it's not available to the entirety of the world, and I would just prefer regular hardware to begin with. Why does a repair service even have to be needed? And coming in at the number 1 spot, I'm sure many of you saw this coming, I teased it earlier, this is the Nintendo Switch online service. This, to me, is by far the biggest controversy with the console. Yeah, Joy-Con Drift is an issue, but you can still use another controller. Yeah, the issues with the Pokemon games are a thing, but if you're not a Pokemon fan, it doesn't affect you. Same thing with Bioleth. If you're not buying the Smash DLC, it doesn't matter to you. The Nintendo Switch online service matters to anyone who wants to play a game online, which you'll now have to pay for. Now, Nintendo had a terrible online service back in the Wii U days as well, but at least it was free. Now they're making you pay for something that a lot of the time doesn't function very well in games like Super Smash Bros., isn't even offered in the general format for games like Mario Party, and the whole virtual console thing, which is a big deal on the Wii U, allowing you to buy your favorite games from the past and play them on the console, that's been replaced with the Nintendo Switch online service for NES and SNES games, meaning that any games from the N64, Game Boy Advance, DS, a variety of other consoles just aren't available for you to play. With this current system, I'd rather buy the games individually and get the games that I want, as opposed to just getting a selection of old games, many of which that I'm never going to touch, and having no ability to buy many of the games that I want. If this online service was free, yes, I'm sure in many ways it would still be a problem, but it would be excusable a lot too. But because they're making people pay, I expect services at least close to what the other companies are providing. Yes, they charge more, but they're also offering a lot more. Those were some of the biggest controversies in my opinion with the Nintendo Switch, but there were also many controversies involving characters as well. If you're interested, be sure to check out my video on 10 characters who are forced to be censored by Nintendo for various controversies. Consider subscribing and ticking the bell icon if you want to be notified when new videos go live so that you do not miss the new Nintendo content. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.